Good evening. How's it going? Let me know if you can hear me in the chat box if you can. Thank you for joining me this evening. Let's just say hello to a few of the viewers. We've got Lindsay H, welcome to you. Susie M. Lucy Blue. Killer Hills, welcome to you. Thanks for joining us. Lenny Russell, thank you for moderating this evening. Who else we got here? Athena, welcome to you. JB, Ms. Blackwell, thank you for joining us. Totem Crow, welcome to you. So as per usual, as we've done on the previous streams, we'll be taking a look at one specific case and the official court transcripts of Lucy Letby's original trial. And on tonight's episode, we'll be dealing with the case of Child Q. And what we do on these particular streams is take a look at Lucy Letby's defence, as in her evidence in chief, where she's asked questions by her own barrister, Benjamin Myers KC. And then we take a look at what Lucy Letby said under cross-examination by the prosecution, again on the same case. And tomorrow will be the final episode in this particular series, which actually deals with what took place after Lucy Letby was removed from the unit. So don't miss tomorrow's episode, and that will be at the usual time of 7:30. Lenny Russell, welcome to you. Thank you for joining us this evening, as always. JC says it's morning, wherever they are, possibly Australia. Oh dear. John, welcome to you. Thanks for joining us. Alicia, am I pronouncing that right? Is that Alicia? Let me know if I'm pronouncing that correctly. I'm probably not. Leah J, welcome to you. Thanks for joining us. Vicky Maguire. Violet, welcome to you. Jew, welcome to you. Thanks for joining us. And as I say, we'll leave it a couple of minutes and then we'll get started with Lucy Letby's evidence in chief. And I haven't done the banner again, have I? So let me just create a banner. 2 seconds. I always seem to forget that for some reason. All right, let's change this. Yeah, that's the one. And then change this one. Excellent. Lovely. Jean Ann, welcome to you. Thanks for joining us. Oh yeah, and don't forget to hit the like button. Well done, Louisa. Yeah, hit the like button if you could. That would be superb. And then after tomorrow, I think we'll take a look at possibly the Furwell inquiry or something else. So, as I say, don't miss tomorrow's episode because it will be the last in the series relating to Lucy Letby's evidence in chief, which deals with events that take place after her removal from the neonatal unit. Lulu Violet, welcome to you. Thank you very much for joining us. And Celeste, wherever your name's just gone. There we are. Right, okay. So, settle in. Grab your cup of green tea, or tonight it's a hot lime juice for me. So we're going for a lime juice this evening. I don't know if that's wise, but we'll see how it goes. Thank you so much for the £3 super sticker. And again, how do you pronounce that first name? Elsp? Hughes. Feels like my pronunciation is terrible. I don't know what it is. Or is it just me getting incredibly difficult words? Is that what it is? But thank you so much for that £3 super sticker. Much appreciated. If you do wish to support the channel and the work that I do, all the transcripts that you'll be listening to tonight have been paid for by myself and the channel. And if you do wish to support the channel and the work that I do, you can find out how to do that down in the video description box below. All help, as always, is always appreciated. You are pretty much spot on. Well, hopefully you're referring to me when I said Alicia. Let's hope so. And I do know, I need to know how to pronounce this first name. Elspf. I don't know. Maybe someone's just created that name on purpose just to trick me. Who knows? But we'll see. But thanks for that. It's yeah, greatly appreciated. Mish, welcome to you. Thanks for joining us. And also Terence the Legend Stamper. Welcome to you. What do we have here from Jean. Q is the last child. It is, yes. And then we've got Lucy Letby's evidence in chief regarding what happened once she was removed from the unit. And we've also got an interesting part of the cross-examination, which again deals with that exact fact, what happened once she was removed after the case of child Q. So there'll be one more episode, which will take place tomorrow evening at 7:30. Right, okay. It said Elspeth. No, I can't even get it. Elspeth. Yeah, I think that's right. Elspeth. Right, okay. Right, we'll leave it there. Oh, dear. Right, let's get started, shall we? And as I say, don't forget tomorrow is the final episode, so don't forget to join me tomorrow at 7:30. Right, okay. Let's get started with Lucy Letby's evidence in chief. And how do we get rid of this again? Bear with me. There we go. Right, okay. So, we've got Mr. Myers, as per usual. In the presence of the jury, Miss Letby, count 22, child Q. We are looking now at the third of that sequence of days, the 25th of June, but we'll start just by looking at child Q's details from his birth. And if we can go to tile 1, please, Mr. Murphy, and have a look inside that tile. We have the 22nd of June 2016, born at 0409, gestation 31 weeks and 3 days, weight at birth 2076 kilograms. Born to the mother of child Q and the father of child Q by caesarean section. There's one event in the case of child Q, and that's on the morning of the 25th of June 2016. When at 9:10 that morning, it's recorded that, quote, he vomited clear fluid nasally and from the mouth. There was desaturation and bradycardia, and he was mottled. There was neopuffing and suction, which produced neopuffing, suction, and air plus plus aspirated from the NGT. That's the incident that we're dealing with, 9:10 that morning. Vomited clear fluid nasally and from mouth, desat and bradycardia, mottled, neopuff, suction, and then air aspirated from the NGT. To put it in context, you may recall that child Q was settled during the day, began to tire in the evening, and he had an unsettled night. There were continuing concerns the following morning, and further concerns identified by Dr. A during the morning of the 26th of June. We may recall this concludes Dr. A making a diagnosis, ultimately, of probable NEC, for which child Q was transferred to Alderhay at 18:20 on the 26th of June. So that's 6:20 the following day in the afternoon. He went there on the 26th of June. He returned back to the Countess of Chester on the 28th and remained there until he was discharged on the 25th of July. So in outline, those are the events relating to child Q. Before we actually go to the events of that day, Miss Letby, I'd be grateful with Mr. Murphy's assistance if we could look at one of the handover sheets that was recovered from the bag that we looked at earlier. This is a handover sheet dated the 28th of June with child Q's name on it. Just to remind everybody, we looked earlier on at the handover sheets for the 23rd, 24th and 25th of June, which are the dates we've been dealing with on those 3 days in this series of events. Also recovered from the same bag with them is this one, the 28th of June. Can you see that clearly, Miss Letby? She replies, yes. As it happens, the 28th of June is not a date we are concerned with in terms of this indictment or any allegation. Were you designated as child Q's nurse? She replies, no. Who was designated to look after child Q on that day? She replies, Caroline Bennion. Of course, the redactions, the black lines we see, have been added for the purposes of these proceedings. But when you received this handover sheet, you'd have been able to see all the names on it. She replies, yes, I would, yes. How many babies are designated to you for this shift? She replies, I had 3 babies in nursery 3. And if it wasn't for confidentiality, we would see their names. She replies, yes, you would. On that sheet, yes. No allegation with regard to them, and you're not being blamed with regard to them. How is it you come to have a handover sheet when you were designated as their nurse? She replies, so we get handover sheets at the start of every shift with every baby's name that's on the unit at that point. That has come home with me. Mr. Myers. All right, does this in fact have any connection to child Q? No, none, so far as you're concerned. No. Or any child on this indictment? No. Just reminding us of the timings. You weren't working, were you, between the 16th and 22nd of June? You were on holiday. She replies, that's right. We've dealt this morning, or dealt with the 15th of June and child N, and then with the triplets child O and child P on the 23rd and 24th. How are you feeling by the time you came to work on the 25th of June? She replies, emotionally drained and just exhausted. We'll have a look at the layout for this shift. On the 25th of June, tile 87 please, we see there the shift leader is Mina Lapalainen. You're the designated nurse for child Q. And also on that shift are Nurse B, Mary Griffith, Nicola Dennison, Rebecca Morgan and Rebecca Morgan. Was Rebecca Morgan still with you as a student nurse at this point? She replies, no. So at this point, I had expressed that I couldn't give her the time that she needed. So she started to work with other members of staff. Mr. Myers, can we scroll down to see who you were on with? Sorry, who you were with. Can you tell us who you were looking after on this day? She replies, I was looking after child Q in nursery 2, and then another, then another baby BM in nursery 1, Mr. Myers. Right, when you're doing that, what do you have to do to be able to observe and look after the babies you're designated to care for? She replies, you need to physically be able to be with the baby. If you're in different nurseries, what do you have to do? She replies, you'd have to split yourself between the nurseries. Right, do you recall anything about the handover that morning? Anything in particular? I'm not suggesting you do. I'm just asking if there is anything about that handover that you do recall. She replies, no, there isn't, no. Do you recall what condition child Q was in when you took the handover? She replies, I don't recall there being any significant problems, no. Do you recall who you took the handover from? She replies, no. Right, stop there for a second. Killer Hills with the £4.99 super sticker. Thank you very much. Greatly appreciated. Welcome to you, Emma EFC. Thanks for joining us. Silver Fox, welcome to you. Okay. Right, so back to Mr. Myers. We're on page 7 at the moment. We've got, how many pages have we got this evening? 40 we've got this evening. And then quite a short video section. So I'd imagine it'll be a little bit of a shorter stream than the last couple that we've had, but we'll see how we go. So page 7, Mr. Myers. It's Nurse Samantha O'Brien. Again, would you have read the notes from her record and the charts that she had kept? She replies, yes, I would. Well then, before we turn to what you describe, I'd be grateful if we could look at tile 70 to see the situation with child Q when you came on duty. Go to tile 70 please, Mr. Murphy. It's the lower part, the right hand side if we could please. This is the note by Nurse O'Brien, first of all at 5:20 in the morning on the 25th of June. Quote, care taken over at 2000. That's 2000 hours on the 24th. It describes checking the emergency equipment, everything working correctly, and the monitors are working correctly, and child Q is self-ventilating in air, no respiratory distress observed, maintained saturations in high 90s, nursed in humidified incubator 55%. Axilla temp slightly low. What's axilla temp, by the way? She replies, it's the temperature under their arm. It's measured under their arm in their axilla. Axilla. Hopefully that's right. Okay, thank you. Axilla temp slightly low at start of shift. Incubator temp increased. Accordingly, axilla now within normal limits. Let me just check that I'm pronouncing that correctly because I did have a look at this the other day. 2 seconds. It's going to bother me otherwise. Yeah, axilla. Right. There we go. Just to be on the safe side. Axilla temp slightly low at start of shift. Incubator temp increased. Accordingly, axilla now within normal limits. It sets out the fluid requirements and how they are to increase this morning. Babevan and lipid infusing as prescribed via UVC. Excuse me, site satisfactory. Feet pink and warm. New lipid syringe put up overnight using sterile ANTT. What is an ANTT? She replies, it's the technique used for sterile medication. Having trophic feeds of donor EBM 0.5 ml 2 hourly. Excuse me, 2 seconds, guys. Right, let's try again. Having trophic feeds of donor EBM 0.5 ml 2 hourly due to moderate aspirates. Abdomen is full but soft. Baby passed meconium and urine. Nystatin given as prescribed. Where it says trophic feeds of donor EBM 0.5 2 hourly due to moderate aspirates, what lies behind that as a matter of practice? She replies, the trophic feeds are feeds that we give that don't have any nutritional value to the baby, so they are still receiving their full requirement via IV fluids. But we give what we call a trophic amount just to get their digestion system going. When it says due to moderate aspirates, what's the relevance of that? She replies, so at this moment he's got moderate aspirates, which would be an indication that he is not ready to start having milk feeds in any large quantity. Right, can we look at the bottom? There's a further entry at 7:30, which is at the time of handover or approaching it. Capillary blood gas carried out this AM. Result not as good as previous, however acceptable. Seen by Dr. D. To continue, U&E and Billy done on gas machine, that's bilirubin, remains below treatment line. It mentions aspirates there. I've got some questions if you could help me with some feed charts. Would you have looked at the feed charts when you come on duty? When you came on duty, she replies, that's part of the checks we do when we come to shift. That's part of the checks we do when we come to shift. Mr. Myers, can we go then to tile 61, which is the first part of the feed chart we look at. This chart follows the course over the 23rd up to midnight on the 23rd. This is the midnight on, I apologise, up to midnight on the 24th. So this is leading the midnight before the shift when you came on. Can you see where it says 2400 on the right hand side? Yes, Miss Letby, yes. So that's midnight before your shift commences. If we just look, if we take a line down from 2000, which is the start of that shift, we've seen reference to aspirates. Can you see aspirates recorded at that time? She replies, yes. That's 2 ml, yes? Yes. What are the size of trophic feeds that child Q is receiving? She replies, 0.5 milliliter, 0.5 ml. And can we see those recorded as we go along? Lucy replies, yes. And where are they? She replies, they're in the feeds box. That's the second just above that. Second block up, is it? She replies, yes. When it says total, how is that totted up? She replies, each time we give a quantity of milk, that is added to the total that we give as all the feeds accumulate together. So in total, the baby's had 3.5 ml at 8 o'clock in total in that 24-hour period. Child Q's been receiving 0.5 ml. Is it every 2 hours? She replies, yes, from 9 o'clock. If we see at 1800, there is a 2 ml aspirate, isn't there? Lucy replies, yes. And at 2000, there is a 2 ml milky aspirate. Lucy replies, yes. Is that something which is to be expected as a standard finding of a baby being fed like this? She replies, no, you would hope that the aspirates would be decreasing over time. Mr. Myers, right, can we go past midnight to tile 62? Go into that and follow this through. We look next at 0300. Is there an aspirate produced then? She replies, yes, 3 ml. And again, is that something that you would regard as acceptable in a baby like child Q? She replies, no, we would be hoping for the aspirates to be decreasing in size. These are just of 0.5 ml feeds. She replies, yes. Is 3 ml considered a significant quantity for a baby of this size on these feeds? She replies, no, it wouldn't be of great concern, no. It's not the same And then Lucy jumps in. It's something to monitor, but ideally we would want the least amount of aspirate possible. It's not the same scale as the ones we looked at in the case of child P the day before, is it? She replies, no, this is relative to the amount that he's been given. It's to be monitored. She replies, yes. Is it of any concern at all that he's producing these aspirates? She replies, no, and it does say that they're milk aspirates as well, so... All right. Do you recall what view you formed of how child Q was doing when you took over care on the morning of the 24th? She replies, when I took over care, sorry? Mr. Myers, yes. How did you feel that child Q was doing when you took over care? She replies, I noticed on his observation chart that he was on the cold side, and in view of the aspirates that I'd seen on that document overnight, I decided that I would prefer to have child Q reviewed by the doctors before feeding him at 9 o'clock. Alright, we'll find the OBS chart at tile 13. It's in paper as well, but let's just put up the OBS chart that I'm referring to. I'm going to ask you just to explain what you've just described to us. We've seen the feed charts and the aspirates there, and the note by Samantha O'Brien and what she said. We might need to enlarge the right-hand side of the lower part of this chart, but we'll probably need to look at the whole column ultimately. Can we look at 8 o'clock? If we can just identify 8 o'clock first, Mr. Murphy. Is that the start of your entries? She replies, yes. So the last 4 columns. She replies, that's mine. That's yours. She replies, yes. 8, 9, 10 and 11 o'clock. Lucy replies, yes. Then if we scroll down, we've got signatures at 8, 9 and 10 o'clock. Lucy replies, yes. There isn't one at 11 o'clock. She replies, no, but it's my writing on the observations. Right, you mentioned a concern you had. Can you describe to us, now we've got that there, what you mean please? She replies, that child Q was having a persistently low temperature, so he was nearing into the yellow sections on the day before and overnight, which was requiring quite an increase in his incubator temperature. How do we know it was requiring an increase? First of all, let's take that in order. Where do you, so we can be quite... Can you use the cursor, if it's possible, to show us where you say there's matters of concern, where this temperature is? She replies, initially here, indicating he's borderline being into the yellow area. Yes. And the incubator has been increased each time to try and bring that temperature up. Mr. Myers. We can see that, just so we can keep a note of that, that's at 12 o'clock. Sorry, well, 12:25, 13:20 and 1600 on the day before. Lucy replies, yes, it's then improved and it's within normal limits, and then overnight it has dipped almost to the yellow, again on 2 occasions, requiring an increase in incubator temperature. So you're now looking at the times at 20:30, yes, the evening before, and 0300 in the morning. Lucy replies, yes, and we can see the incubator temperature is recorded here, and it's gone from 30 degrees up to 32 degrees. Mr. Myers. Of the previous ones, the ones we looked at, the first 5, that's not you, that's made those entries, is it? She replies, no. So that's what you've seen there. Can you take us across to 8 o'clock and your entry for 8 o'clock? What does that tell us? Lucy replies, at 8 o'clock here, his temperature again is borderline, being in the yellow area, despite having the incubator turned up by an extra 2 degrees over the preceding hours. So that is a cause for concern. Mr. Myers. All right, so overall, what were the issues that you wanted to raise? She replies, I was a little bit concerned that he had had an ongoing borderline temperature that wasn't responding to an increase in the temperature of the incubator. He'd also had some aspirates overnight, and I was aware that his blood gas that had been taken that morning hadn't been as good as previously. Right, so going back to where you were, as you were telling us about this, what did you decide should happen as a result of that? She replies, I felt that I should not feed child Q until the doctors had reviewed him. Would the doctors be due to review him? She replies, yes, the doctors came onto the unit around 9 o'clock to start doing their ward rounds. That's a regular event, is it? She replies, it is, yes. So what did you plan to do then? She replies, I would ask them to come to see child Q before I did any feeds or cares for him. Right, stop there for a second. Just check the chat. Okay. Mel Kane, welcome to you. Thanks for joining us. Valor Hawks, welcome to you. Right, okay. Let's continue onwards, shall we? So we're on page 19 at the moment. So, Mr. Myers, as we approach that time, we're talking about child Q here. Were you with him constantly from the start of the handover up to the time of the incident at about 9:10? She replies, no. Where did you go? She replies, so I was caring for another baby in intensive care in nursery 1. Is that baby B that we've seen? She replies, yes. She's one of the babies that you were designated to look after. Is that correct? Lucy replies, yes. So if you've got to deal with that, what did you do to make allowance for the fact that you were going to do that? She replies, so in order for me to go to my baby in nursery 1, I would have to make sure that somebody was present in nursery 2 to be able to keep an eye on child Q for me. Can we put up tile 87? Can we put back up tile 87 so we can just see who was where, please? This is the image of the nursery. So we can keep a track of what you're describing, Miss Letby. So you've been in nursery 2 with child Q. She replies, yes. Who else was in there with you? She replies, Mary Griffith. And where else did you need to be for other observations or care? She replies, I needed to go to my baby in nursery 1, who was intensive care. Right, who else is in nursery 1? She replies, nurse B. Now I think this part might be quite important, so if we keep all this in mind. I've got some recollection of her, excuse me, of her being asked questions about this in the cross-examination. So you having to do that, what did you do? Tell us about it. She replies, in this event, you wouldn't leave a high dependency nursery unattended, so knowing that I had to leave, I made sure that Mary Griffith and Mina Lapalainen were aware that I was going into nursery 1 and that I was leaving nursery 2. Did you go to nursery 1? She replies, yes. Was there anybody else who could see what was taking place at this time, or would have noticed who was going where? She replies, Mina Lapalainen was sat at the nurses' station, right, and the doctors were starting to carry out the ward round in nursery 1. Again, anything unusual about you asking the nurse that was already in nursery 2 to continue looking after a baby there in your absence? She replies, no, that's standard practice. The same as Mary was split between nurseries 3 and 4, and she would have had to have done the same process for her babies. So approximately, at what time would you estimate you went to nursery 1? She replies, shortly after 9 o'clock. And when you got there, how was the baby that you were looking after? She replies, I don't recall specifically. Do you recall anything that you were involved in when you went to nursery 1? When you went to nursery 1, as a matter of free recollection, do you recall anything? She replies, I know the doctors were doing the ward round. I'm not sure if they'd started on this baby or another baby on the unit. I think I may have been assisting Nurse B with some medications. I'm going to ask if we could just look in the neonatal review for this event and go to page 3 of it. I'd be grateful if we could put that on the screen, Mr. Murphy. Can we enlarge the section from tiles 53 just to the bottom, please? It should be the final one of the neonatal reviews, page 3 of 7 from the second file. So we've got you in with child Q at 9 o'clock, Miss Letby. Can you see that? She replies, yes, at line 55. We know you'd conducted observations at 8 o'clock. We just looked at those, and you conducted observations also at 9 o'clock, did you? She replies, yes. You tell us that you had to then gone sometime around then to nursery 1. You tell us that you had then gone sometime around then to nursery 1. She replies, yes. What does the neonatal we can see actually for nursery 1 at line 59? There's some entry made on a chart for child HM, although no name is recorded. Can you see that? She replies, yes, at line 59. Do you have any recollection whether that involves you or not? Don't guess. She replies, I couldn't say without actually seeing the chart, no. Alright, let's move to where we do have you identified. Go to line 62, which is a format we're familiar with. 62 and 63 are a pair we now understand. Hang on a second. 62 and 63 are a pair we now understand. What's happening there? She replies, here myself and Nurse B are administering medication to baby J.A., which I believe is a baby in nursery 1. It's one of the babies Nurse B is looking after. So you assist Nurse B in that regard at about 9:04. She replies, yes. Did you remain in nursery 1 for any length of time after that or not? She replies, I don't think I was in the nursery for a long time, but I was in there for a few minutes, yes, doing this. All right. What was the next thing that happened so far as we're concerned in this allegation? She replies, I could hear something going on outside in the nursery, so I came out of nursery 1. So can you describe to us what it was that happened when you came out of nursery 1? She replies, I could hear that something was going on outside of nursery 1. So I went out through the door, and as I walked out, I could see down the corridor to nursery 2. And I could see that Mina and Mary Griffith were with child Q, so I immediately went over. We can take the neonatal review down. You immediately went over to where? She replies, I went to child Q's cot side. We'll come to the note you made shortly, but do you have a recollection yourself, as in unaided, as to what took place? She replies, now I recall that I was informed that he had vomited, but by the time I had got there, the vomit had ceased. There was no vomit. Who informed you that he had vomited? She replies, Mina Lapalainen, and she had said it was mucousy. She said it was what, sorry? Lucy replies, mucousy, very mucousy. Was Nurse Griffith present when that happened? When you were informed of that? She replies, yes. How was child Q at the time you were informed of that? She replies, he was still receiving a little bit of pressure from the neopuff, but otherwise he had recovered. Did you have any involvement from your recollection in the steps taken to assist child Q? Lucy replies, no. I'm going to ask to look at the note you made next, Miss Letby, which is tile 143. This is a note at 12:53 that day, the 25th of June. I'm not going to read all of it immediately. Perhaps could you read from the start of this to the point we're now dealing with? She replies, written for care given from 0800 to present. Emergency equipment checked, fluids calculated. Child Q nursed in an incubator with humidity. Observations as charted. Temperature low, incubator increased _2. Tachycardic, active and alert. Pausing there. When you say temperature low, what does that refer to that we've already seen? She replies, it refers to the readings that we were looking at previously on the OBS chart. Right, temperature low, incubator increased ×2. Please carry on from tachycardic then. She replies, active and alert, IV fluids 120 ml kg Babevan and lipid via triple lumen UVC. Lower limbs pink and warm. Abdomen soft and non-distended. Read the next section please. 0910, child Q attended to by staff nurse Lapalainen. He had vomited clear fluid nasally and from mouth. Desaturation and bradycardia mottled ++, neopuff and suction applied. Dr. A attended, air ++ aspirated from NG tube. Mr. Myers, and he was then transferred to nursery 1 and placed on CPAP. Lucy replies, yes. Just whilst we have this note here, can you help us with, as we look at part of that, it says 9:10, child Q attended to by senior nurse Lapalainen. Can you tell us which items there are? Things that were told to you? Hang on a second. Can you tell us which items there are things that were told to you and things that you saw, if there's any distinction? She replies, this whole passage was what was being fed back to me. It's what I was informed of. Right, can we go to the apnea chart at tile 101? This is completed by Nurse Lapalainen. Again, this isn't you that's made the note, but I'll go over it with you, then I can ask you the questions about it. 25th of June 2016, 9:10, no apnea, brady. So heart rate down to 98, desaturation 68%. And a question mark under fit. Duration 3 minutes intermittently, and Nurse Lapalainen entered this. Baby found to be very mucousy. clear mucus from nasopharynx. Oropharynx, removed clear fluid, +++. Oxygen via neopuff given post-suctioning. Dr. A emergency called to attend. NGT used to aspirate stomach by nurse L. Letby. Do you see that? Lucy replies, yes. Just going through some of the items here where it describes baby found to be very mucousy, clear mucus from nasopharynx, oropharynx removed clear fluid +++. Is that how it was described to you, in those sort of terms? She replies, yes. Was there any other type of vomit ever described to you? No. So only ever as some sort of clear fluid? She replies, yes, and that he was very mucousy. That was the term that was used, mucousy. Right, and after clear fluid it makes reference to oxygen being given via neopuff. Did you have any involvement in that? She replies, no. Dr. A is called. It then says NGT used to aspirate stomach by nurse Letby. Do you recall that? No. Could I ask you, if that's in the note, is it something you take issue with? Are you saying you didn't do it, or it's just not something you recall? She replies, I can't say. I don't have any specific memory of that. All right, but it's in the note that Nurse Lapalainen put there. She replies, yes. Right, stop there for a second. Cheeky Chops with the £1.49 super sticker. Thank you so much for your support. Greatly, greatly appreciated. And love the username. Superb. Excuse me. Right, okay. I don't think there's anything I've missed here. So in a couple of seconds we shall continue. Okay. So, Mr. Myers, it says, your note, one moment. If we could just go back to tile 143, we can see where Nurse Lapalainen's note ends. If we just enlarge the section we were looking at before, your note describes vomited clear fluid nasally and from mouth, desaturation and bradycardia, mottled ++. It says, neopuff and suction applied. Dr. A attended. Then air ++ aspirated from NG tube. Where has that information come from, air ++? She replies, that's what I was informed of. We have air ++ in your notes after the section saying that neopuff and suction had been applied. Lucy replies, yes. We've seen where Nurse Lapalainen refers to you aspirating the NGT. Yes. Are you involved, from your recollection, in any of what we see in this note? She replies, no. You say this is what was reported to you. Lucy replies, yes. In any event, we have it there, and we have the order set out there. Did you continue to care for child Q after he was moved to nursery 1? Lucy replies, yes. We've looked at so many different events with babies in this case, Miss Letby, and a large number compressed into a period of time with you. But in the course of events, without undermining it, how big an event is what happened to child Q, in terms of how it stands out with what happens on the unit in the course of what goes on there in a day? She replies, this wasn't a significant event. This is something that we do deal with on a routine basis. By significant, do you mean it's not important? She replies, well, not that it's not important, but it doesn't require a level of intervention that is high. Mr. Myers, did this stand out at the time to you, first of all, as an event that was especially serious? And I mean that in a medical way, not emotionally for people involved, for child Q's parents, but in the clinical way. We understand what I mean. It says inaudible there. And Lucy replies, clinically, no, he needed minimal intervention. And certainly, until we come to the evening, did it seem to lead to any further complication initially? Lucy replies, no. In the terms of that day, did child Q have any further collapse? No. We know it's in your note that by evening he'd become tired. Lucy replies, yes. We had that in the note from Dr. A. Are you aware that he was intubated that evening? She replies, yes. Can we just go down, if we scroll down please, in the note, in fact, to the addendum at the bottom of page 2013. It actually has the timing there and then content across the page. So it's 2013. We can see an addendum that you entered at that time, Miss Letby. Can you read this for us, please? She replies, respiratory rate declining 15 to 19 breaths per minute and intermittent pauses in breathing. Blood gas stable but on downward trend and child Q appearing tired. Oxygen requirement developing. Discussed with consultant Gibbs and decision made to electively intubate. Drugs given as prescribed. 2 times 100 mcg, I think that says, /kg morphine bolus given as active ++. Uneventful intubation, size 3 ET tube at 1925, 8 cm at the lips. Clear bilateral air entry and chest movement. CMV 18/5, rate 40. Inspiratory time 0.4. Oxygen reducing on ventilator. 40 micrograms per kilogram morphine commenced via UVC second lumen. 3 mil urine passed, equivalent to 0.1 mil kg per hour. I guess that means, and 10 mil kg bolus given at 1950. Care handed over to staff nurse Davies. Mr. Myers, thank you. In between child Q appearing tired with a higher requirement for oxygen, which led to intubation towards the end of the shift, and the incident at 9:10, had there been any other significant deterioration in his condition? She replies, no. The only change was that he was now needing CPAP. Right, but he remained stable on CPAP throughout the day. And that was during the day. Lucy replies, yes. And any other significant deterioration by way of vomiting or desaturations or anything like that? She replies, no, none. Mr. Myers, we know in the case of child Q that he was transferred the next day to Alderhay, as I described when we just began to look at the evidence relating to him, and he was there for a couple of days before returning to the Countess of Chester. After child Q returned, did you continue to care for him on occasion? Do you remember? She replies, no. All right. She replies, I don't believe so. No. Well, I'm just going to ask if we can put up the notes at exhibit page 24465 to assist with this, Miss Letby. No one expects you to be able to remember dates everywhere. And then he says, are you all right? She replies, yes. This is the 29th of June at 2046, so about 8:45 in the evening. A note by you for child Q. I just identify it because, do you agree, that indicates you're his designated nurse on that occasion? She replies, yes, that's right. Yes, would you have any recollection of that, but for the note? No. And also, could we look please at the note at page 24467? I'm not going to the detail because it isn't the detail that's relevant. So far as we understand, nothing is alleged with this. It's the date and the time. Again, this is the 30th of June now, 1603. Why is it that you're writing up the note for child Q on this occasion? She replies, I'm his designated nurse. As his designated nurse, what's your role with respect to him? She replies, I'd be responsible for his care throughout that shift. Is that what you did? She replies, yes. All right, thank you, Mr. Murphy. We can take that down. That was just looking at continuing care with you and child Q. We know that we've heard in the evidence after the event with child Q, Dr. Gibbs was making inquiries. I'm going to ask if we can put up tile 240, please. We see that tile number there. There's a message from you to Dr. Gibbs. I think that might be incorrect. This is back on the day, and then Mr. Justice Goss jumps in, Dr. A. Mr. Myers, sorry, Dr. A. Dr. Gibbs it's about, but it's you to Dr. A. Thank you, my lord. Let me just make sure where this goes. Hang on a second. Because this might form part of tomorrow's video, actually, I think. Because this goes off of child Q into what happens afterwards. So I might have to save this part, potentially, for tomorrow's video. Let me just have a look. All procedures being carried out. Some more messages on this. We're going to become junior shift. No, that's fine. Right, let's continue onwards. So, Mr. Myers, sorry, Dr. A. It's Dr. Gibbs it's about, but it's you to Dr. A. Thank you, my lord. It's 22:45 on the night of the 25th of June, 2016. So this is the night of the day we've been looking at. Your message is, do I need to be worried about what Dr. Gibbs was asking? Can we just look, please, at Dr. A's reply to you on the next tile 241? The answer you got was no, from Dr. A. And then that was followed 4 minutes later at tile 242 from Dr. A again, saying he was asking to make sure that normal procedures were being carried out. There's some more messages on this, which we're going to turn to next, but just starting here. What was it you were asking about when you said at the start of those messages, do I need to be worried about what Dr. Gibbs was asking? Lucy replies, I'd become aware during the shift that Dr. Gibbs had been making inquiries as to who was present in the nursery when child Q had this episode. What would there be to be worried about that? What would there be to be worried about that, says Mr. Myers. Lucy Letby, I was worried that I shouldn't have left him in the nursery. All right, we'll go to tile 246 next, please, if we could, Mr. Murphy. Dr. A says to you, what exactly did he ask? We'll go through these relatively rapidly. Tile 247, your response at 23:01. I walked into equipment room and he was asking Mary who was present in room and how quickly someone had gone to him as I wasn't in the room. That's followed at 248. He's asked who was where. He's asked who was there. I said I popped out of the room, but Mary was in the room and Mina at the desk. Again, what is the issue you thought was concerning? What is the issue you thought was concerning Dr. Gibbs? What was he checking on? Lucy replies, whether child Q had been left unattended. Can we go to tile 251, please, which is Dr. A to you at 23:08. All he was doing was checking that there wasn't a delay in that room and that the room had been left empty. Let's just read that again. All he was doing was checking that there wasn't a delay and that a room had been left empty. So that's supposed to be hadn't been left empty, but it says had, okay. Was he HDU level because of UVC? There's nothing to worry about. And your response at tile 252. Okay, I was worried because I wasn't with him at the time, but Mary was in room and Mina outside. I had B in 1. ITU because of UVC. When you said I was worried because I wasn't with him at the time, but Mary was in the room and Mina outside, again, what criticism were you seeking to meet when you said that? She replies, I was concerned that Dr. Gibbs was implying that I shouldn't have left the nursery or that child Q had been left unattended. And had child Q been left unattended? She replies, no. Who had been in charge of him? She replies, Mary Griffith, and also Mina Lapalainen knew that I was leaving the nursery. That's quite... So, who had been in charge of him? Mary Griffith. So why would Lucy be worried about leaving the room if the person who's designated nurse for child Q isn't even her? Does that make any sense? I was worried because I wasn't with him, but why would you be with him? You're not his designated nurse. But Mary was in the room and Mina outside. And Mary's in the room. That doesn't make any sense, does it? Am I losing my mind? So she's concerned and worried because she thinks that Dr. Gibbs will say, you should have been in the room, but she wasn't the designated nurse and Mary was already in the room. So I don't get that at all. Why would you be worried? You wouldn't, would you? Who had been in charge of him? Mary Griffith. And Mary Griffith is in the room. So that doesn't make any sense. I was worried because I wasn't with him at the time, but Mary was in room and Mina outside. I was concerned that Dr. Gibbs was implying that I shouldn't have left the nursery or that child Q had been left unattended. And had child Q been left unattended? No. Who had been in charge of him? Mary Griffith. And also Mina Lapalainen knew that I was leaving the nursery. Or does she mean that she put Mary Griffith in charge of him? I don't know. We looked a few moments ago at 2 further occasions when you cared for child Q, and the second of those was the 30th of June. Did you work in the unit again after the 30th of June, Miss Letby? She replies, no. When you said, I was worried because I wasn't with him at the time, but Mary was in the room and Mina outside. Again, what criticism were you seeking to meet when you said that? Oh, hang on a second, have I reached the end? I have, that's actually the end. I'm rereading it, sorry. I thought I'd gone to the next page. I thought, hang on, this sounds a bit familiar. Right, so we're actually at the end here. Okay, so that's where it ends concerning child Q and Lucy Letby's evidence in chief. Right, okay. Tanya Morton with the 10, is that Australian dollars? Tanya Morton with the 10 Australian dollar super chat.
Oh my God!
That is quite fantastic. Thank you very much, Tanya. That is greatly, greatly appreciated. As always, a massive thanks to Killer Hills with a $4.99, Cheeky Chops with the $1.49, and also Tanya Morton with the 10 US smackaroonies. And also Ms. Hughes, whose first name I can't seem to pronounce, with the £3 super sticker. Thank you so much for your continued support as always. Right, so very shortly we will start with Lucy Letby's cross-examination, again on this same case, the case of child Q. So let's change the banner. There we go. Tanya just wanted the OMG. That's the, yeah. Well, if you surpass the old $10 amount, then you get hit with the OMG emote. I've been told off for using it, so I have to use it in special occasions only. So, well done for reaching, or breaching, I should say, that threshold. Lenny's not happy. He's thinking to himself, please don't encourage him. Please don't encourage him to use that emote. I'm trying to use it sparingly, shall we say. Amanda, welcome to you. Thanks for joining us. Victoria, thanks for being here this evening. And Nicola Ball, welcome to you. Right, okay, let's start with Lucy Letby's cross-examination. This is quite a short video. I think it's about 20 minutes long. So, as I say, tonight's stream will be slightly shorter, and then tomorrow's will be the final episode, I guess you could say, of this particular series, which deals with what took place after Lucy Letby was removed from the unit. So don't forget to tune in for tomorrow's episode. Right, let's get the cross-examination underway. I'm going to move on to events that happened after the events concerning the children, and I'm going to tell you the headlines of the topics I'm going to deal with. And that is not the part of the video that I was looking for. So just bear with me while I fix this enormous cock up. Right, it's 6:39:42. 2 seconds. Right, bear with me. Okay, there we go. Right, let's start again, shall we? Moving on to child Q, please. If we go back to your defence statement at paragraph 191. The final count, of course, count 22. You begin by saying that you did nothing to harm child Q. Paragraph 191. I didn't work nights from June 22nd and was not on the ward after the 25th, so I cannot be the person the mother of child Q describes at these times. Paragraph 192.
On the day of the 25th of June, I was child Q's designated nurse. He was in nursery 2. I also had a baby in nursery 1. We were very busy. At paragraph 193, I don't recall the handover. So much had gone on the day before that I don't recall the time between the handover and when child Q started to deteriorate. Paragraph 194. It appears that child Q had been receiving feeds regularly before my shift, although aspirates continued to be withdrawn. I don't understand why feeding continued if he was not digesting the milk he was being fed. Paragraph 195. Child Q was due a feed at 0900 hours, but I did not feed child Q. I wanted the doctors to see him on the ward round before he was fed. After I'd undertaken checks and observations on child Q, I told Mary Griffith that I was going to nursery 1 to look after the baby there. That baby was BM. Mina Lapalainen was at the desk. 196. I understand that whilst I was looking after BM, child Q was sick and that he was then neopuffed by Mina. This was already happening when I came back to the nursery. I conducted some checks and I have noted that I aspirated air +++ from his stomach. I don't know how that air came to be there. I didn't do that. Then 197. The doctors reviewed child Q and put him in nursery 1, where I continued to look after him. I wouldn't say that this was a collapse. Child Q was sick and he did need the neopuff and suction, but he was not ventilated until much later in the day when he became tired. 199. I don't remember aspirating child Q with an NG tube after the vomit. I continued to look after child Q during the day. 201. Child Q didn't have another collapse or become seriously unwell, but he did become tired during the course of the day. This is why he was intubated. He was not put on a ventilator because of concerns about NEC. Finally, I did not deliberately retain a handover sheet from the morning of June 25th, 2016. All right? Yes. So first of all, is that what the document says? Yes. Now, I don't know whether you remember, but do you remember that Dr. Evans was challenged for suggesting that child Q had crashed? It was suggested to him that that is a gross exaggeration of what we're dealing with. Yes. Is that your position? Yes. Do you accept that crashed is the right word? No, I don't think this was a crash collapse, no. What word would you use? It's a deterioration. A deterioration? Yes. What sort of a deterioration? An acute deterioration at that time. Do you remember the text message you sent to Dr. A about 2 weeks later on July 6th? Do you remember the one I'm talking about? No. Well, we may come to it tomorrow, but it's in the sequence of post-indictment text messages. Do you remember that document? Yes. And it's 2 messages at 163 and 164, if Mr. Murphy could help, please. So this was Dr. A to you. Child Q's care is going to be reviewed on Thursday as well because of acute deterioration. Yes. And you responded, the next message. That makes sense. This wasn't just some common or garden desaturation, was it? Yes, it was. I'm referring to the decline that came later on in the shift. You've just told us that you would characterise what happened at the beginning of the shift as an acute deterioration. Yes. And that is what is being talked about here, isn't it? Yes, I would also class what happened to him later in the shift as an acute deterioration as well. What's the difference between a crash and an acute deterioration? I would define a crash as something that requires a crash call, an emergency bleep, which means the baby is needing resuscitative measures. After child Q's acute deterioration, you were relieved of the care of the child BM, weren't you? Yes. Why was that, if what happened to child Q at the beginning of the shift really wasn't anything very serious? Because he needed to move into nursery 1. Why did he need to move into nursery 1? Because he deteriorated. He was in a serious condition after that crash, wasn't he? No, I disagree. No. He needed one-to-one care after that acute deterioration, didn't he? Yes, because he was classed as ITU. Yes. All right. So this thing that's been characterised as a gross exaggeration to say it's a crash puts him into ITU. Can we agree on that? Yes. Let's look at the population distribution, please. It's 87 of the child Q sequence. This is the beginning of the shift, isn't it? Yes. What we see is that child Q was with you in nursery 2, and YM was with Mary Griffith. Yes. You had another child, BM, in nursery 1, and nurse B had 2 others. Yes. One of whom was a baby called JA, wasn't he? Yes. Do you remember JA, as a matter of interest? Yes. Did you ever fill in a Datix form for JA? I'm not sure about that. Right, well, we'll come to that a little later. In nursery 3 were 3 children, 2 of whom were being cared for by Mary Griffith. Yes. And in 4 children, 3 of whom being cared for by the band 4, Nicola Dennison, and your friend Mary also in there as well. Yes. And so Mary was split. Her attentions were split between 3 separate rooms. Yes. Concentrating on child Q, though, is it your case that staffing levels caused or contributed to child Q's collapse? No. Is it your case that mistakes contributed to his collapse? No. Or that some form of medical or nursing incompetence made a contribution? No. We'll see what we can agree. At the beginning, following his birth, do you accept or do you agree that child Q needed some respiratory support initially? Yes. So he was born on the 22nd of June at 0409 and was admitted to the NNU at 0435, just to jog your memory. That, of course, was the day after child O, P and R were born, wasn't it? Yes. Whilst you were still away, as a matter of fact. Yes. Child Q made good progress, didn't he? Do you remember that? Yes. He was off CPAP on day 2 of life, which was the 23rd of June. Do you remember that? I know he was on Optiflow by the time I was caring for him on this day, yes. Well, it may be a good idea to have a look, actually, behind divider 22 in the secondary bundle. There's a very easy ready reckoner in the gas chart, isn't there, as to the position of child Q's breathing support. Yes. So we see a couple of CPAPs at 1657 on the day he was born, followed by 0055 on the 23rd. But after that, self-ventilating in air. Yes. Back onto CPAP after what I'm suggesting was a collapse at your hands at the beginning of the shift on the 25th. Yes. So according to that at least, no breathing support. No. It's just before you suggested that there was some form of breathing support. I thought from my memory, but that's why I wanted to check. Okay. As long as we know. Now, can we go to tile 72, please? That gives us the observation chart, for which there is actually a hard copy as well in that same bundle, pages 2 and 3. That is a very encouraging picture, isn't it, until 9 o'clock, when these events unfolded. Yes, other than some temperature issues, but yes. On the night shift of the 23rd into the 24th, do you remember the evidence of Tanya Downs, who said that she got a 2 ml bile and blood-flecked aspirate at 21:30? Yes. His feeds were stopped, but we know, don't we, that child Q's bowels were working well. Yes, he had his bowels opened, yes. So that's the position on the 23rd into the 24th. On the day shift of the 24th, which was the day that child P died, do you remember Nurse D was looking after him and told us that he was fine, albeit there were a few what she described as false braddies from a loose ECG lead? Yes. On the night shift of the 24th into the 25th, so this is the shift before you took over, Samantha O'Brien looked after child Q. Do you remember? Yes. She was getting aspirates, but he was tolerating very small trophic feeds. Yes. 0.5 milliliter every 2 hours. Yes. His breathing was good. Do you remember that? Yes. And Dr. D, so this is tile 79 please, told us that at 6:58 there was a good blood gas. Scroll down. Thank you very much. It's the first blood gas on the 25th of the 6th. Do you see that? Yes. Would you agree that that is a very good blood gas? Yes. I think you said on the afternoon of May 17th, in answer to questions you were asked by your counsel, that to quote you directly, talking about this blood gas, I was aware this had not been as good as previously. What are you referring to there? So there has been a slight increase in the lactate. But essentially that's it, is it? Well, his pH isn't as good. It's still a good gas, but it's not as good as the previous one, no. Do you agree that child Q was in good condition when you took him on at about 8 o'clock on June 25th? No, there were concerns for his abdomen and his feeds. Who was concerned? I was concerned. Anybody else? I don't recall. Well, when you took handover, were concerns being expressed to you by anybody else about him? So when I received handover, yes, I'd been informed that he'd had some large aspirates overnight. He was in good condition, wasn't he? I don't think a baby having large aspirates is a baby in good condition, no. We've already established by looking at tile 87 that your other charge was BM in nursery 1. Yes. And when you were interviewed by the police, you could still remember BM's name, couldn't you? Yes. Yes. So a couple of years later, you could still remember that particular child's name. Yes. Do you remember when you were asked about child Q by your counsel on May 17th? Your counsel asked you about child Q's condition when you took him over. You said this: I don't recall there being any significant problems with child Q. And then you were asked the same question again and directed to the observation charts, and you said, he was on the cold side, and in light of the aspirates on the chart, I decided I prefer to have him reviewed before feeding him. Yes. Okay. We've already established that Mary Griffith had several babies to look after in 3 different rooms, didn't we? Yes. Right. I just want to look at Mary Griffith's movements immediately before child Q had his, what I will call, collapse. So we need to go to the big black file, please, the very last neonatal review. We're going to look at what you were doing and what Mary Griffith was doing, okay? Yes. At line 18, so it's page 2 of 7, we can see that you were doing an infusion for a child J.A. who was in nursery 1, and you were doing that with Dr. A and nurse B. Yes. At 0800 hours, so it's lines 27 and 28, you were doing observations and the neonatal fluid balance chart for child Q. Yes. At 0830, lines 45 and 46, you went back to nursery 1 to do observations and make an entry on the chart for the child BM in nursery 1. Yes. At 0832, do we see that you were co-signing for medication with Mary Griffith for MB, who was in nursery 3? Yes. At 0900, lines 60 and 61, we see that Mary Griffith was doing observations for the child YM, yes, who is the other child in nursery 2. What we also see, though, at line 59, is an unsigned entry timed at 0900 hours for the child BM, who was your child. Yes. But also at line 55, just going up the page, we see that you are recording yourself as doing observations for child Q, yes, at 0900. When you were doing those observations, were you interrupted by Mary Griffith? I don't recall doing the observations. I don't recall being interrupted, no. I say interrupted because if we go to the sequence of events, please, at tile 99, there's swipe data for Mary Griffith coming into the neonatal unit. Yes. I'm going to suggest to you that whilst Mary Griffith was out of the unit, you had pumped child Q with some clear fluid. That didn't happen, no. Of course, giving him milk wouldn't have been an option, would it? Because he wasn't getting anything more than 0.5 of a milliliter every couple of hours. That's right. And if he had vomited a large amount of milk, it would have been very obvious that something was wrong, wouldn't it? Yes. And that's why you chose a clear fluid on this occasion, isn't it? No. Is Mary Griffith right when she says that you were still in nursery 2 when she started to feed YM? I can't recall exactly what Mary was doing, but she was in the room with her baby when I left, yes. I don't know exactly what she was doing. Well, you see, at 0904, you were certainly not in the room because you were signing for medications with nurse B in nursery 1. If we go to tile 97, please, and just scroll down, just concentrating on the 9 o'clock entries, why did you do half a job? I can't explain why I haven't filled in the saturations. You were interrupted, weren't you, by Mary Griffith? No, I don't know why I haven't filled that in. Do you remember the reason that you gave to the police as to why it was you left the room? To go and check on the baby in nursery 1. It wasn't quite that, was it? To care for her, to do cares. Yes. If we go to the third and final interview in the case of child Q, here you're being asked about these events. Yes. You can see at the top the police put to you that you completed child Q's observations and he was due a feed, but it was not given. You say that you didn't give him anything. They ask you whether it was air that you had administered, and then you are asked whether you deliberately left the room to blame the collapse on Mina and Mary. Yes. Do you remember telling the police that you went to do cares? Yes, my memory at that time was that I needed to go in to do cares on that baby, yes. Do you remember several of your colleagues have said that for babies in intensive care, minimal handling is preferred? Yes. And the child BM was one that you had had a fair bit of contact with in the hour or so immediately preceding child Q's collapse. I don't know about that. I carried out observations, yes. Yes. If you go back to page 3 of the neonatal review, yes. Just to remind you, it can be difficult to keep a tab on all this. At 0830, BM, observations and an entry on the chart. Yes. So you'd had contact with this intensive care child about 30 minutes or 40 minutes before child Q collapsed. Yes. And you left the room. Yes. You were not leaving the room to do cares for that child, were you? 15. It's about a third way down. Do you see in the left-hand column it says 15, 57, 57, 20, 00, 24, 29? Yes. And it's actually just after, ironically just after the question I read to you, and you said, no, the baby in nursery 1 was due cares at that time. Yes. And that just isn't true, is it, at 0910? That baby was not due cares. That's what I recalled at that time, yes. That's what I recalled, my memory being at the time of the interview. This was why I'd gone into nursery 1. I know that's what you said to the police, but as a matter of fact, it wasn't true, was it? She didn't need a nappy change, no. What cares were you doing then? I can't say for definite now what I was doing, but she was an intensive care baby, so I wouldn't have left her for too long a period of time without checking on her. Yes, but we've established, haven't we, that you started child Q's observations at 9 o'clock? Yes. You didn't complete them, so rather than completing one job, you then go to do another job that you haven't documented, and there's no suggestion in the paperwork that you actually needed to do. So just explain that, please. My memory at that time was that I'd gone to the nursery because that baby needed something. On reflection, looking at all of this, possibly it was that I went to do medications with Nurse B. I can't say now. My memory at the time of the police interview was that I'd gone back to CBM because she was an intensive care baby that needed to be looked at. Because you had sabotaged child Q. You were just looking for a reason to get out of the room when Mary Griffiths appeared back in the unit, weren't you? No. Do you remember when you were giving evidence on May 17th? You said that you had told Mary Griffith and Mina Lapalainen that you were going to nursery 1. Yes. Why would you do that, leaving half a job done in nursery 2? I don't believe I have left a job half done. I agree I've not written down the saturation reading, but otherwise the job was done. All right. Is this an error? Yes, I think it's a mistake that any nurse could make, and does make. So it just so happens to be that a clerical error is made pretty much at the moment that the child has an acute deterioration. Yes. And part of the clerical error is you disappearing from the room just before the event. That's not a clerical error, no. I'm going to move on to events that happened after.
Okay, so as I say, quite a short episode there for the case of child Q. How long have we been going for? An hour and 15. So the options now are, do I start a brand new stream and go through what happens after this, or do we leave that for tomorrow's episode? Ooh, choices, choices. Let me just see if I've got it all made up and done correctly. Bear with me a second. Let's have a look. Post indictment. Let me just see how many pages this is. I'll probably do this tomorrow, I think. Just bear with me a second. Whilst it loads. There we go. Okay, so that is 37 pages. Yeah. Yeah, I'll leave this to tomorrow because then we can keep two separate episodes. Right, okay. Let's have a look here. No, it's actually quite a small one, Lindsay, to be honest. It's quite a small episode, but it's also quite an important one. So I think rather than starting a second one tonight, a second stream where people might not be able to see it, it'll probably be best to do it completely separately at the same time tomorrow, I think. Oh, that's very kind of you, Silver Fox. Very kind. Right, okay. Yes, we'll leave it here for this evening. A very short one. My sincerest apologies for that. But we'll keep going tomorrow with the final episode. And then we're going to be moving on to, as I say, most likely the Furwell inquiry or some other transcripts, potentially, which I'll need to look through. But again, many thanks to Ms. Hughes, to Killer Hills, to Cheeky Chops, and Tanya Morton. Thank you so much to each and every one of you for attending this evening. Your viewership is always greatly appreciated, as always. Thank you to Lenny and also to Terence Stamper. Pull a double shift. I could do it. I could literally just start a brand new stream and then we go through it. Can I put up a poll? Is it possible for me to put up a poll in the chat? Let me just have a look. Can I create a poll? Possibly. Start a poll. Right. New stream. Right, I'm going to give you 3 or 4 minutes to vote on this. Okay? Okay, yes or no. Start poll. Right, so at the top of the chat box, there should be a poll. Vote, and we will see what happens. I know, 100% yes. 91%, 92, well, 100%, 86. Right, if we've got more than 70, if I get more than 80% yes, actually, then I'll do another one tonight. If it's higher than 80%, if it's not, then we'll keep it as separate for tomorrow. As I say, it's about 45 minutes worth of video and 30 pages of post-indictment. So it's probably another good hour's worth, at least, an hour and a half's worth, I'd imagine. And there's Terence there telling me to pull a double shift. Well, if I'm pulling a double shift, then so are you, Mr. Terence Stamper. Because old Lenny's got to go to work shortly, so you'll have to hold the fort, along with Valor Hawks. So let's give it a couple of minutes, and then we'll see what the results are. Someone bribe him with green tea. I'd have to go and make a green tea. Actually, I do need to rejuvenate the old vocal cords. Oh dear, oh dear. Right, let's have a look. I did do 4 hours. I mean, admittedly, the vast majority of that was a video, but I did do about half an hour and a half, maybe 2 hours of audio, didn't I? So yeah. Oh dear. Let's have a look. Right, let's go and check what the poll's at, shall we? 84%. Right, I'm going to give it to 2052. And if it's above 80% at 2052, then we're going to start a brand new stream in about 10 minutes' time. Oh dear. This smitten kitten. I don't really have a preference. I mean, I was planning on separating this and doing it tomorrow, but as this stream has ended so quickly, I mean, we've only done literally an hour and 20 minutes. It would probably be worth actually doing a separate stream, setting up a new one for tonight, and then just getting through the post-indictment stuff, because as I say, it's only 30 pages. It's not like it's 70 pages and a 2-hour video. It's probably about another 90 minutes worth. So it's not too much for me to do a completely separate stream and then and start over again with this post-indictment stuff. Right. We've got 1 minute left. The poll is currently on 86%. So unless we get an influx of no voters in the next 60 seconds, it looks like we'll be doing a second one. How do I end the poll? That's another question. 16% says no. Working me to the bone. 15% says no. Right, okay, we're going to do another stream then. Right, give it 5 or 10 minutes, and there'll be another stream. Let me just give you a proper time. Let's say 9 p.m. 9 p.m. a second stream will start, all right? So 9 p.m, check on the channel, and I'll be live, all right? And I'll see you all in about 8 minutes' time. Thank you so much for attending this evening, and I'll see you very shortly for the second stream, and I'll join you at 9 p.m. See you shortly. Goodbye. Actually, let's play the outro video, and I'll see you at 9 o'clock.